Hello and welcome here to Talk SCB and welcome right here to reaction from the UEFA Champions League draw for the forthcoming season. The group stages have been announced and we're going to be taking a look at what was a very eventful draw, and we have got some exciting months coming up in the Champions League. There was some fantastic draws, not only our group, but there was a lot of good matchups across the board. There's some very interesting groups as well with some close teams in it, and for once this Champions League has quite a rounded feel. You feel like everybody has got decent enough games, everybody has been given, a group that will test them a little bit, so it's good to see that everybody right across the board is getting tested. And we start with Group A. Of course, we're going to come on to Barca, we're going to assess what exactly this means for us going ahead in the Champions League. We're going to look at some of the other groups as well, of course, because later on in the competition, we may well end up facing these teams if we get out of our group, which of course, we firmly expect ourselves to do. So, Group A is made up of Paris Saint-Germain, Arsenal, Basel and Ludogorets. PSG will fancy themselves to finish top of that group, but of course with no Zlatan Ibrahimovic this season, they are going to be up against it. They've not spent that heavily throughout the summer. I was quite surprised actually that PSG haven't brought in more marquee reinforcements. Same could be said for Arsenal really. Arsene Wenger though very much against spending money and certainly hasn't really brought in any big signings this summer, apart from of course Granit Xhaka in the midfield. But Arsenal fans still crying out for a centre-back and still crying out for that world-class forward they are looking for. The reports say they have agreed a deal to sign Deportivo La Coruña's Lucas Perez. Basel and Ludogorets will both give both of those teams hard games. Any game away from home in the Champions League is always a difficult one. You go to a stadium, often for Champions League nights, they're packed. There's a really good atmosphere. They're always night games, of course, so you've got that really tense, loud atmosphere in stadiums. And certainly going to a place like Ludogorets, I remember when they were in the Champions League last, Liverpool went there. And if I remember rightly, Mario Balotelli actually got the winner for Liverpool that night. And it was a really tough game for Liverpool. So Ludogorets will be tough, Basel will be tough as well. But you'd expect in that group, Arsenal and PSG to see themselves through. Group B sees Benfica, Napoli, Dinamo Kiev and Besiktas all in the same group. Again in that group, this is a very tight one actually, because all of those teams on their day have got the quality to go and really stake a claim to progress. Napoli, of course, without Gonzalo Higuain, he's gone to Juventus. They've spent a bit of money. Benfica, of course, always very competitive in the Champions League. Always in the group stages. They do a very good job in Portugal. They'll be looking to get out of their group in this one. They've got some good attacking players, Benfica. Dinamo Kiev and Besiktas again, you talk about atmospheres. Going to Besiktas on a Tuesday night in Turkey with that sort of atmosphere is going to be a really special occasion. I would actually like to see a team from Turkey really do take on the Champions League, because a lot of the times Galatasaray have been in this position. They've been in the Champions League and they've never really hit it off. They've never really performed on the big stage. So I'd actually like to see, with the incredible atmospheres that you get in Turkish football, I'd like to see one of them really grab that by the horns and go for it. So hopefully Besiktas can really make that a fortress and possibly get through to the last 16, because that group is a good one. Anyone in there can get out of it. Dinamo Kiev got some dangerous players as well, so that's an open group. And then we come to our group, Group C. Barcelona, you guessed it, Manchester City, Borussia Mönchengladbach and Celtic. Now this is what I've called the group of emotion, and that's exactly what this is going to be. The first name that came out the hat in this group, of course, Manchester City, and you could have written it. Pep Guardiola going to Man City this season. He's going to be trying to make his mark there, trying to put his stamp on things. So what's going to happen? He's going to go back to his spiritual home, the place where he learned his trade as a player, as a manager. He's coming back home, and it's going to be an absolutely incredible occasion when he comes back to the Camp Nou, and likely so when we go to the Etihad to take on his team to see exactly how he has moulded them. But it's not only going to be that in this group. Claudio Bravo, of course, will be returning to Barca. He's officially signed for Manchester City now. We're very sad to see him leave. Not only that, though, there's more on this. There's more. Ter Stegen will be returning to his former club in the form of Borussia Mönchengladbach, and Luis Suarez will be playing against the manager who he very nearly won the title with at Liverpool, Brendan Rodgers, at the helm at Scottish champions Celtic, who are back in the Champions League this season, and very good to see them back as well. I do enjoy Celtic. Again, like we were saying about Turkey, you go up to Celtic Park, absolutely phenomenal atmosphere when you go up there. absolutely brilliant. The fans, the city, eat and breathe football, and it's great to see them back in the Champions League. So that is going to be a great group. It really is going to be a really good group. Man City, of course, is going to cause us problems, but we are certainly favourites. I don't get anyone now who's afraid, who's scared, who's worried. Man City have got Guardiola. They've got new players. Mönchengladbach, very exciting team from Germany. They've got some exciting young players, and Celtic will bring the passion, the hard work. But we are favourites in this group. Do not make any mistake about that. We should be going to this confident. We're the European superpowers. We're going for it again this season, and we would very, very much fancy ourselves in topping that group, and that should definitely be our target. Group D will see Bayern, Atlético Madrid, PSV Eindhoven, and FC Rostov, who recently knocked out Jasper Cillesen's old side, Ajax, just yesterday with a 4-1 defeat on the night. So very, very good group again, that one. And Bayern against Atletico really does intrigue me. We saw them last year, of course, in the Champions League, of course. Really, really good matches between those two. Tightly contested, tactically very, very exciting matches to watch. So Ancelotti's going to come in, going to take over what Guardiola's done. How exactly is he going to change Bayern? They brought in some new players as well. Atletico Madrid are full of new faces. They've got some new talent as well. Simeone will be trying to work his magic once again and finally trying to lift the trophy at Atletico after falling at the final stage against their local rivals Real Madrid. And that happened last season, of course. Very disappointing for Atletico Madrid. PSV were in Atletico Madrid's group last season, so that's going to be a very, very interesting game. They weren't in the group last season. PSV met Atletico in the knockout round, and that was the game that went, I believe, to a penalty shootout. And like I said before, Rostov came through the Champions League qualifying and certainly excelled. Now, that is the end of UEFA's photos. You look on UEFA's Twitter account, and they've only got those type of photos up to Group D. So we're going to go to a more larger scale photo now to take a look at the rest of the draw. And like I say, these groups are really exciting. I do like the way these groups are set out. I do like the teams that are in these groups. And I think there could be some really, really good games. Because a lot of the time in the Champions League, there's a few decent games in the group stages in there. You're watching it, you're taking it in. There's some good games, there's some ones you look forward to. But then, other than that, it's sort of passing the time until all the games are done. You can get on with the knockout stage. You sort of know who's going to be going through after about 3 or 4 games. That may not be the case this season, because a lot of these groups are going to be very, very tightly contested. They're going to be very, very close indeed. Group E is another one of those. CSK Moscow, Bayer Leverkusen, Tottenham and Monaco all make up that group. CSK Moscow, I'm so glad that we couldn't have got them anyway. They're in pot 1, but so glad that we didn't have to do any of those long journeys. That's what the last thing that you want is to be going to Russia, playing in a stadium like that, freezing cold. It's not good for anyone. It's certainly not good for the players, not good for the recovery. So even though we know, I think we play away from home after every single away Champions League game or something like that. It doesn't work very well for us with the La Liga fixtures, coincidentally enough. But the good thing is that we haven't got any long journeys. We go to England, Germany, Scotland, all nice trips, all ones that do not take a lot of time at all and shouldn't take too much out of the players. Leverkusen, Tottenham, Monaco in that group, all good teams. All possibly, could do it on their day. Not a lot of European experience in there, I have to say, so that could be an exciting group, and somebody in there could really take it and move on to the next level and really try and excel in the Champions League. Group F sees Real Madrid, Borussia Dortmund, Sporting Lisbon and Legia Warsaw. Now it's going to be quite an emotional trip for Ronaldo, I'm sure, going to Sporting Lisbon, the club that he came from before he moved to Manchester United. There's been some absolutely stunning games between Real Madrid and Dortmund in the past few seasons. You of course remember Lewandowski's 4-goal haul against them when Borussia Dortmund reached the final that season. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how Tuchel sets up against Zidane. What strings can he pull? Can he make a really good result against Real Madrid? But they both got a chance in that group, and that's a group that you'd probably expect Real Madrid and Dortmund to come through quite comfortably. But which of those ones will take the top spot? Because Dortmund have made some really good signings this summer. None other than Marc Bartra, so we're going to have to keep an eye on him during that game. So Group F that was. Group G is such a very nice one, I have to say, because Leicester, we all watched them last season. We all took in what they did in the Premier League. A really fantastic job Claudio Ranieri's done. And now he's been presented with a real chance. Leicester, Porto, Club Brugge, Copenhagen. That is a group that Leicester can certainly take on. That's a group that Leicester, if they can believe in themselves and really take on those clubs and have the belief that they belong in this competition, they could really get out of that group. There's a real chance because Porto, very, very good side on their day. They've got some very experienced players, some good players as well. Club Brugge are beatable, and so are Copenhagen. So Leicester, certainly with the quality they've showed last season, they've managed to hold on to most of their players, most of their key players, the likes of Vardy, Drinkwater, of course, Mahrez. They've lost Kante, which is going to be a very, very big loss to them. They've still got that defensive structure, and they can still cause a shock in the Champions League by possibly reaching the group stage, and it's very much on for them to do that. And the final group, Group H, is quite a decent one as well. Juventus, the Italian champions, Sevilla, who, of course, who are in the draw, courtesy of that Europa League success once again last season, Lyon and Dinamo Zagreb. So once again, you'd probably expect Juventus and Sevilla to navigate themselves out of that group, but Lyon is showing some early good season form in Liga 1, so that's going to be interested as well to see how that gets on. But like I keep saying, those groups look pretty good. I think I'm pretty excited about this Champions League this season. I really am. I hope that we can make a real good go of it. I hope that we can get back to our Champions League self. Last season was a bit of a shock, a bit of a real disappointment to go out in the quarterfinals against Atlético Madrid. It didn't work out for us on that night. But what I will say, guys, is what I said on Twitter earlier on, is that I wouldn't fear anyone. Don't fear anyone. Don't worry about the fixture filing up. Don't worry about injuries. Don't worry about suspensions. We've had a really incredible summer, and we have. We've had a very, very good summer in terms of signing players, in terms of making sure that our squad is at the right level to take on not only La Liga this season, not only the Champions League, but to make sure that we got ourselves covered in every single game. Whether there's injuries, whether there's suspensions, whether there's a little bit of fatigue, tiredness, we've made sure that we've got ourselves covered by signing the players that we needed this summer, and I feel like we were in a really, really good position to take on all the competitions, to prepare ourselves, and there's nobody better than Luis Enrique in terms of knowing when to rest those players, make those rotations, keeping the squad in tip-top condition. He can do that, and we can have a great season. And this Champions League group is set up to hit the ground running, play some very, very exciting games earlier on, and really set the pace in our season. So leave your thoughts down below, guys, on these Champions League groups and specifically our opponents. What do you think about Pep coming home? What do you think about Claudio Bravo returning so soon after leaving? Leave your thoughts down below. I'm excited to hear them. I'm excited in general. Vesca! El Barça!